So let's now look at integrating assessment. And another word for this is clustering. So when a whole qualification is being taught, the units of competency are designed to stand alone as individual units of competency in case somebody just needs a statement of attainment. But you guys are doing the whole qualification. So therefore, you're going to find that a lot of the performance criterion are going to overlap. Let me show you what I mean. So here I've opened up two of your core assessment units. The first one, which is plan assessment, and the second one, which is assess competence. And if you notice there, in both performance criterion 1.2s, it says in the first core unit, identify and access benchmarks for assessment. And over here in the second one, which is assess competence unit, access and interpret relevant benchmarks for assessment. Okay, so they're both wanting you to perform the same performance, which is to access the benchmarks. Now, if you've got 10 of these units and the benchmarks are talked about in maybe 5 of the core units, then you don't want your candidate to have to repeat that performance 5 different times. And the whole idea in VET is to provide a holistic experience. So if you're presenting it in a whole qualification, you would be encouraged to integrate. And obviously this would be done when you're a lot more experienced as an assessor. The purpose for you today is simply to appreciate that clustering occurs and that you can identify the mapping back to each unit's performance criterion or element. So for example, in your next question, you'll have an observation checklist and you'll be able to see and identify where the units of competency, the element, or right down to that performance criterion occurs. And you'll be able to see what the common performance activity is. So to access training resources, that actual performance covers multiple units of competency. So we're just going to perform it once. We're going to make sure that they're competent, that they can access a training resource, and we'll be able to tick them off as competent in all of those units. Let's find out a little bit more about that. You'll have here a link to some more deeper reading information, and we'll open up that now in a minute. The Mac users can use the Word document. I'm just opening up the PDF. And down on page 8, it talks about whether to cluster or not to cluster. And there's a couple of questions you can answer. So do the units in the proposed cluster have common knowledge, skills, or performance? Well, we just saw from the 2 units that we had open that there was a common performance. So yes. Are the units in the proposed cluster, and the proposed cluster we're calling the modules. So as you've done module 1, that was a cluster of different units. This is module 3. This is a cluster of different units. So do the units, are the units in the proposed cluster at the same AQF level, Australian Qualifications Framework level? Well, ours are at a Certificate 4 level, so yes. Do the units in the proposed cluster have a common application in tasks? Well, yes. In this case, we're looking at the assessment task, and that is actually worded in the unit name. So at your leisure, have a nice deep read and develop further learning, but appreciate as well that as an entry-level assessor, you'd be relying on your supervising assessors to design your instruments and learning materials and assessment tools, or your RTO would have pre-purchased them.